Hello and welcome to the second video in my tutorial series on how to make an ecosystem simulation in Unity. Last time we got this simple cube that moves around and goes to the food if you can find it. And you can see here that if we move him away, he won't be able to see the food anymore. As you can see there, he'll just move to random positions. So today what we're going to do is we're going to give him hunger so that he can starve and eat. So let's just head into the animal script real quick. And once it's loaded, we're just going to create a new float and just call it hunger. Now, there are a few ways to do this. A simple way is just to enter the update function and call hunger minus minus. But this would require us to make a very big hunger variable that would count down every frame. And we also want to make it so that no matter how high your frame rate is, the hunger still depletes at the same rate, which this doesn't here. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that instead of counting down to 0, we're going to make it count up to 1. So I'm going to create a new float, call it time to death by hunger. And whoops, to give it a type. And we're going to set this equal to 200. Now in this update function, what we can do now in the update method, what we can do is we can increase the hunger slowly up to 1. So first we're going to create a new float, call it hunger time, and this is going to be our multiplier using our speed for how fast we get hungry. Because if an animal is really fast, we want it to get hungrier faster than an animal that's really slow. So we'll set this equal to speed divided by 10. What this will do is it'll make it so that the speed is the baseline. So anything above the speed will be higher than 1, anything below our current speed of 10 will be smaller than 1. But 10 will be 1. So 10 is like the average speed. Then in here, we're just going to do hunger plus equals time dot delta time times hunger time, which of course right now is 1, divided by time to death by hunger. And this will slowly increase our hunger over time. Now let's make it so they can eat the food. So here we have a target position that is constantly updating to the position of whatever we're trying to access. And here we have a distance variable. So here it says if the distance is less than or equal to 1, well, then get a new position. But if we just encountered food, we don't want to get a new position, we want to eat it. But we have to actually check whether or not we have found food. So we're just going to create a new bool called found interest. We're going to set it equal to false. And this found interest bool is just going to tell us if we have found something of interest, like food or a mate. We're also going to create a new bool, call it range 1. Again, set it equal to false. And this will tell us if we are actually close to the object. So what we could do, and what I've done in the past, is we could just create a game object variable and set it equal to this here. That way we can always access it. But what this allows us to do is it allows us to do this for food and mates and possibly any other thing you would like to add without actually having to access each game object of each interest we have. So in here, if dist is less than or equal to 1, well, then the range is 1. So we're going to set range 1 equal to true. Now, if we haven't found an interest, if found interest equals false, then we can run this. Because we have found an interest, we don't want to go away, we want to interact with it. So here, when we check if we can eat the animal, we'll set found interest equal to true. And we can check if range 1, well, then we're obviously close enough to interact. So we'll handle all the interactions in here. So first, we'll set the hunger equal to 0. And then we'll destroy the other dot game object, or the food. So if you save this, head back into Unity. I'm just going to move the food a little farther away so it doesn't eat it immediately. And if we run the game, and we're just going to move him over to the food here. Ooh. That's what? Okay, so I found the problem. Actually, a couple of problems. First, in here, we need to set found interest to false, since we've just eaten it. And then here, instead of setting range 1 to true when this is true, we're instead going to set range 1 equal to dist less than or equal to 1. So if you save this and head back into Unity. Oh, and one more thing. We actually want to put all of this here in the onTrigger stay method, and we're just going to remove onTrigger enter. Now if we run this, everything should work perfectly. And there we go. So now let's just make it so they can all die. So let's go into this live entity script here, and we're going to create a public void die. And in here, we're just going to do destroy game object. We can change this in the future if, for whatever reason, we need to change how the animals die. But for now, this should work. And just for some extra debug reasons, we're just going to check how they died. So, create a new enum, call it cause of death, and we're just going to set the first one to hunger. Then in here, we're going to take in a cause of death, call it cause. Then we're just going to call debug.log, and we're just going to put in the name of the animal and how it died. So game object dot name plus cause of death was plus cause. It's right here. So now let's go back into the animal script, and instead of just destroying, we'll call entity dot die cause of death dot hunger. Save this and head back into Unity. And run it. Once it dies, there's a little message here saying the food's cause of death was hunger. Oh, we need to add another one here. Being eaten. So in here, instead of calling hunger, we're going to call being eaten. Like that. Here. And there we go. We can do some little extra things to make this message a little prettier, but for now this works. So now back in the animal script. If the hunger has reached 1, the animal is too hungry and we want it to die. So say if hunger is greater than or equal to 1, then we're going to call get component live entity dot die cause of death dot hunger. So save this, head back into Unity. Run it. And we're just going to set the hunger to 1 here. And you can see once we did that, it died from hunger. Great. I'm just going to do a couple more things in here. I'm going to set this to 1,000 instead of 100. And then here, this is actually inaccurate, drawing a cube. Because as you can see, this is supposedly our spawn range, but our range is actually a sphere, not a cube. So instead of draw cube, we're going to call draw sphere. We're going to put transform dot position, and then range. So this is a better approximation of what the actual spawn range is. So decrease it here. Alright, we're also going to make it so that these animals can be spawned in at random. So first let's go into the prefabs folder, and let's just drag in food and animal. Then in our environment script, let's just create a public void, call it spawn animal. Then create a vector3, call it spawn point, set it equal to get random position. And in here, we're also going to take in a prefab, so game object prefab, and then we're just going to instantiate this prefab at this position, spawn point, and then quaternion dot identity. Here we go. Then we're going to get a reference to our prefab, so game object animal, and public game object food, then public int animal count, and public int food count. And in here, we're just going to do a for loop, and loop for each of the food count. And for each of those, we're just going to call spawn animal with the food prefab. And then we're going to do this again, except with the animal count and the animal prefab. Alright, so head into Unity. We're just going to remove both of these. Then we're going to put animal under animal, food under food, and we're going to set them both to 10 here. And if you run it, everything should work. And we can see here, actually, they're above the ground instead of on the ground. But they are spawning in, so let's just fix that real quick. Okay, so here we can see when we drag them as a prefab, they have a Y position here, which coincidentally for both of them is 0.5. This is how high off the ground they should be. So here, we're just going to change the spawn point a little bit. New, vector 3, spawn point dot x, prefab dot position dot y, oops, position transform dot position dot y, and spawn point dot z. Save this, head back into Unity. And run it. And you can see we've got 10 food and 10 animals that all spawned in. Although we seem to have some problems here. So in this on trigger, the stay method, here we check if there is, in fact, an entity. And then we run all this if there is. If there isn't, well, we want to check if we think we have found our interest. And since obviously we haven't, we'll set found interest equal to false. And you can see there are not a bunch of people grouping up where they think they see food. Awesome. So that's all for today. Next time we're going to be adding predators and of course chasing and running and things like that. So stay tuned.